It could also just be early childhood of learning that truth is not valued. And that if you tell the truth, that you will be reprimanded, that you'll get in trouble, that the consequences will be so hard that it's going to be scary for you to come up and speak your truth. And for some kids, that doesn't affect them, but some people, they're more sensitive to these things. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today, we're going to be looking at the natal chart of Caylee Anthony and taking a look at kind of, who she is on an astrological level. I personally am extremely biased. I mean, I think everyone is. If you know this story or her story, everyone's really biased and really thinks that she's a liar. But there are some things that I did want to talk about that I've noticed in her chart that, some things are obvious, but some things that I saw were surprising to me. So I'm very excited to share that with you. If you're interested in this type of content, go keep watching. Before we get started, though, I just really quickly note, I'm an astrologer. If you're interested in any type of astrological services, whether it's readings or having like tutoring, if you want to learn more, I provide tutoring services. Go over to my website, fourthhouselb.com, where you can view the things that I have to offer. And also, if you like what you hear on this channel, please support me with a nice little tap on the subscribe button. Definitely will go a long way for me. I really would appreciate it. Okay, let's get into the reading. I honestly think the worst of Caylee Anthony, and I try my best to be so objective. And I think that it's really hard. Even when you're doing this type of work, it is really hard to just keep a very, neutral mindset. And there are some allegations that she made specifically against her father. And I had all the intention of just dismissing all of it. But as I looked at her chart, I don't know. I think that some of the things that she said has a little bit of weight. I think that Caylee Anthony will talk about her lying, but Caylee Anthony has lied so much throughout the investigation, during Casey's trial and everything. She lied so much that even if there was truths weaved in, I mean, where do you know where she, there's never going to be clarity about that. And then we're going to get into that detail, those types of things in her chart, because that's very clear as well. But let's go through a quick synopsis of who Caylee Anthony is and why the story is so important or so captivating to everyone. So Caylee Anthony was born on March 19th, 1986 in Warren, Ohio, and she became a central figure in the disappearance and death of her 2-year-old daughter, Caylee Anthony, in 2008. And some of the actions and behaviors of Caylee Anthony while her daughter was missing, that's the thing that really made people question her innocence and really raised an eyebrow when it came to her. So some things that stuck out to the people who were paying attention to the case was, one, she didn't report her daughter's disappearance promptly. Caylee Anthony was last seen in June 2008, but Caylee didn't report her daughter as missing to law enforcement until July 15th, 2008. And this delay in reporting really raised suspicions. Another thing that stuck out was she constantly made false statements to law enforcement. So Caylee provided law enforcement officers with a series of false statements and misleading information about Caylee's whereabouts, including that she had left Caylee with a babysitter named Zanny, the nanny, and this person didn't exist. Another thing that she said was that she worked at Universal Studios, and she hadn't worked there in years or months or something. She got fired from there. She wasn't working there. And it's a funny story about her basically taking the officers to where she works. And they already knew that she didn't work there, but they're like, let's see where this goes. And so she takes them in, and eventually she just turns around to them and says, yeah, I don't work here. So she just lied throughout the whole case. So her credibility in the trash. Another element is that you have, she continued during that month. She continued normal activities, went partying, was seen partying, karaokeing. I think she did a bathing suit contest or a wet t-shirt contest, some type of contest that had to do with her body. She's still engaged in online activities that seemed, just nothing was different. And all these activities Caylee was doing, I guess her parents let her use the car, and then the car impounded. I guess the parents had to pick up the car from the impound lot. And when they found the car in the trunk, it smelt like a decaying body. Later on, they found that there was evidence of human decomposition, according to forensic tests. And so again, this just added to another level of just foul play that was associated to the death of Caylee. The defense team argued that Caylee accidentally drowned in the family pool. Ultimately, Caylee Anthony was acquitted of most of the serious charges, including first-degree murder. She was, however, found guilty of providing false information to law enforcement officers, and her acquittal in the murder charges led to significant controversy. I mean, people were pissed. I mean, absolutely horrified that this lady got off free. So now she's living, a somewhat normal life. She came out with a documentary that more recently, I have not watched it. I think I should watch it, but I don't know. I don't feel like I need that in my life. I don't know. I have enough documentaries of like people who I think are much more fascinating than her. So I don't know. Tell me in the comments if I should watch it. So anyways, let's get into her natal chart. So Caylee Anthony was born on March 19th, 1986 at 6:12 a.m. in Warren, Ohio. This will make her a Pisces sun, a Cancer moon, and also a Pisces rising. So she's a double Pisces. Honestly, quadruple Pisces because she has Jupiter and also Mercury there. But she has a lot of Piscean energy to start with. I do want to make note that there are some a chart or a birth time there's a birth time floating around that is different that makes her a Leo rising. I don't know where that came from. This is the one that I have, and I've tried to confirm it with multiple sources, and this is what I have, so consider that. So she is a Pisces sun. And which means that her identity, her ego, the way that her soul wants to express in this life, the way that she could shine if she's able to shine in her most authentic self, would be someone who is compassionate, empathetic, intuitive, creative, imaginative, emotional, someone who's highly psychic, and someone who can be a dreamer and a romantic, someone who thinks about the most ideal situation, especially with her Mercury in Pisces. Her Mercury is conjunct her sun, so the way she thinks, the things that she thinks can be bigger than what it is in life. That can be good and bad, right? That means that you can have like the biggest dreams and the most vivid dreams. I actually have Mercury in Pisces, and how I've seen it manifest in my life has been that my thoughts are way bigger than my little mouth. And I have all these thoughts and all these ideas and all these plans and all these things, the way I see things manifest. But I can only communicate what I want to people one word at a time. So sometimes even when I'm doing a reading, I have to tell a story or paint a picture, because sometimes to just say what it is because I'm seeing like a huge orchestra and I only got like one instrument with one note at a time I can play, if that makes sense. So I have orchestra in my head and I have one note I can play at a time. So I could feel that. Sometimes with Pisces though, because you have Pisces as a water sign, it's a mutable sign. So it does have this flowing interconnectedness to it. Whereas Cancer is more of a one-on-one connectedness, emotional, empathetic energy. And you have Scorpio that seeks depth, that really wants to connect on an intangible way, in a way that's more spiritual and emotional, but like really in a deep way, not on a superficial way. And then you have Pisces, which wants to connect with all. And that process of wanting to connect to all, there is this kind of Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. And so Neptune tends to dissolve things, right? And in that dissolving, you can lose oneself, right? So if the sun is in Pisces, a person with the sun in Pisces can be a person that struggles with being their own self and being their own identity. The zodiac is laid out in a way, and I know I'm going into these details, but the zodiac is laid out in a way that the next sign after each sign corrects a problem from the previous sign, right? So if you are an Aries, it's like impulsive and quick to action and things, and those can be positive attributes for some, in some instances, but can be a problem if you're maybe putting your foot in your mouth. Taurus corrects the misgivings of the Aries sign, which Taurus is a little bit slower to anger, a little bit more sure-footed, and so it goes like that throughout the whole sign of the zodiac. So Pisces has this wanting to just be connected to all things. And so it's very interesting that Aries comes after that, where Aries is the sign of I am, and is the sign of this is who I am. So I just wanted to explain that, because Pisces does have this dissolving energy. And spiritual practices, meditation, connecting with source and the divine, has this ask of kind of disconnecting from your core identity in order to find what is meant for us beyond us, and what our needs are and what we want, but what is best for all and all energy in the universe. So I know it's a little much, but Pisces can be very spiritual. And even if you talk to someone, as you were describing, I was in the class one time and we were talking about Piscean themes, and even as we're talking about Pisces, we start blurring the lines of our words. We start not speaking as clearly. Like even talking about Pisces tends to elicit this type of thought and this type of speech that is not as clear. So it's fascinating. So sorry if I'm not as clear. But I wanted to kind of also illustrate that a person with a Mercury in Pisces, a Sun in Pisces, their whole identity can be wrapped around smoke and mirrors, the fog, mist, what is not visible and clear, and storytelling. Pisces, Mercury and Pisces people can be very good storytellers, and they can also tell extravagant lies. and complex stories. So that's why they're really great creative, musicians, lyricists, people who are musicians and things like that will have that mercurial energy with, Pisces, Neptune, things like that. And so the Piscean archetype has, again, this element of not necessarily standing in your own identity, but thinking of everything around you all at once. And so obviously meditation, prayer, and those types of things can be conduits, and music and things like that can be conduits to connect to source and some type of higher level, right? Or some type of transcendence. But that's a negative or a low vibrational approach to trying to seek this, whatever this never ending need for connectedness to the universe. People can easily fall into substance abuse and alcoholism and vices that are similar to that would make someone disassociate from their identity. So in a prayer and meditation, you're kind of dissolving your identity and trying to become one and understand the universe around you. But also when you participate in alcohol and drugs, that is another form of disconnecting, dissociating from one's identity. And so Pisceans have to worry or, be careful about, indulging in, substances and things that are, like alcohol and things like that. You have to be careful about that, because there's always going to be a draw to that. So Caylee Anthony, she fell into the party scene pretty early in her life, and was known to be a constant liar, even amongst her friends in high school. They, usually your friends don't characterize you as a liar, but like her friends did. Like she was always lying for little things. I want to also highlight that her ascendant is also in Pisces, which doubles down on this Piscean nature. So not only is her identities wrapped up in Piscean themes, but she also has the way she does things can be, again, have this, unclear, nebulous approach to things, being not as honest, not being as transparent as one would like in approaching day-to-day lives. So again, she was known as a constant liar. Even with Caylee, her daughter, we never find out who Caylee's biological father is. It could be, she said she was essayed. She said that, she knew, but she didn't want to tell. She said that her mom, but there's never been a clear statement from Casey who the father is of her child. Okay, so let's just quickly touch on the sun and squaring. The sun is forming a T square with Mars and the IC. So a lot of friction and stress. Her ability to shine, her ability to express herself and to be her true self in the high, like a higher vibration of herself, the best form of herself, is inhibited by Martian energy, which can be very inflammatory energy. That can be energy that's associated to a little bit of violence. It's kind of, a Mars Sun square can be associated to a violent father, a father who has a little bit more anger issues, who rules with an iron fist. And then you have that the T square is also affecting her home life as well. So I'm really not loving this already. And we're going to come back to that Mars up here, because that's going to play into her karma. So we'll get to that in a bit. Her moon in Cancer. Cancer, again, being that intuitive energy, that really nurturing sign. And I think it's very ironic because, first of all, the moon is in Cancer. It's at home in Cancer. And so, you're going to think that, okay, a person with a moon in Cancer could never be set up or put in a situation where they're known as being a mother who unalived their child. Like, this person would never have this be a part of their storyline, right? But we'll talk about, I could just flash it real quick. What do you guys think is the reason? Maybe this trine to Pluto and the South Node, we'll get to that, okay? And maybe this opposition to Neptune, which can make things really difficult for her sense of reality when it comes to family and motherhood. So we'll get to that. In evolutionary astrology, we look at the South Node. I usually start with the South Node, but I thought I would start with her Pisces sun, because we're here. But the South Node, if you don't know, is in evolutionary astrology, we use it as an indicator of unresolved karma, an area where someone comes into this life having to work on something. In a past life, they might have not failed a test, but they might have overdone something, or they might have not learned the lessons that they needed to learn in the past life. And it also could be an indicator of early life trauma, like the nature of their upbringing at the time of, around the time they were born. So you end up having, if you can use that in the ascendant, you can see what their life was when they were very young. The South Node is in Scorpio. Scorpio is associated to the underbelly of life, the things that people don't want to talk about in polite societies. The occult, it's about anything that just makes people uncomfortable, even just like the psyche of a person. My husband does not like this type of stuff. Like, he does not like to know how someone could possibly unalive someone. He doesn't care. He does not want to get into the psychology of a person who's a unaliver. He doesn't want that. But then there's some people who are more scorpionic, who really thrive and trying to understand life, and knows that life is not about the fun, Taurian, tasty, beautiful things, but there's complexity to life that makes it worth living, but also is interesting to explore, so that you can learn, and it's just, you can feel, because it's real. And so South Node in Scorpio indicates a life that started or even had past lifetimes that had to experience sadness, immense trauma, immense violence and pain. And this person can have issues with trust and the idea of people being trustworthy in their life. And this is developed either from like, some people just are born with like this cold, not this coldness, but this knowing of like, yeah, you've been through some stuff in a past life. Like they just have the seriousness, this graveness about them. And it's usually because they have these types of placements. And then also it can indicate that early on in their childhood that they had some type of, situation that happened. You have Pluto right at on the south node as well. And so that adds another layer to this interpretation of the same thing. More trauma, more anxiety inducing events in their early childhood, a lot of like pain, a lot of things that could have been inappropriate. And we're talking about Pluto, so we can talk about violence and we can talk about sex, and we can put those together and you can figure out what I'm trying to get at. And then you have the 8th house, which is this like secret house, this house of death and transformation and intense, this like pressure cooker of emotions, and I think that who she is and how we know her is was formed through her south node in Pluto. That's a heavy, like, we can't make light of anyone with a Pluto ascendant, Pluto, any type of Plutonian south node, whether the Pluto is conjoined their south node, or their south node's in Scorpio. You can't make light of that as a heavy, heavy, heavy karmic marker. And I do want to add that the south node, I think it's the mean south node, true node, is technically at 0 degrees, which adds a volatility and a lack of sophistication in even addressing this. Like there's no way she could address this in a healthy way, given this 0 degrees south node. So setting her up for, a lot of challenges. But ultimately, this gives slightly a dark childhood, this early upbringing. So I also want to highlight that Pisces is water. Okay, I say big water because it was Trump who said big water, but like water, like expansive, because when you think about water, you think about flooding. Like, the worst type of damage to a house is water damage, right? Because it goes everywhere. It's really hard to block that. And so Pisces pretty much operates as this like opposite. I'm going to say opposite because I don't want to get into polarity, but where Saturn is like the blocker, right? Is the structure. Pisces is where the gates are open, like just like flooding, the water just flowing. And there's lack of boundaries. So if you're using the ascendant as a potential indicator of her early life childhood as well, and how she emerged into this life, we're probably seeing boundary issues going on. Her brother, there is some, I know I want to bring this up, please don't sue me. Mercury is a symbol associated to siblings, communication. And should I say this? I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to wait until I get to the Chiron. Let me hold that. Let me remember it. There's a lot. Okay. There's a lot. So let's get to, so let's talk about this water trine. She has a nice water trine. And so at the face of it, you're like, yeah, come on, water trine. We love a water trine. But the thing about trines can be, a lot of people think that trines are good energy, supportive, creates flow. It's all good. But if it's a trine, and specifically a water trine, to the south node, then we're talking about an energy that is supportive of the bad behavior. So, and so she has this water trine, or the trine from the south node and her Pluto to her moon. Her moon is her family and her mother. She also has Jupiter a part of that trine, which is overindulgence and can be associated with abundance, but abundance from other people. Someone has to like give that to her. Support to the South Node is not necessarily the best thing, because what ends up happening, because the South Node again is karma where you might have overdone something in a past life. So then you come into this life having support of doing those same things. So it's the people around you, the things, the systems that support your bad behavior, that don't allow you to break the cycles that have plagued you for lifetimes before. And so in here, because you have the moon and Jupiter and you have Pluto, you have karma around being coddled and allowing her to overdo things. And this could be a place where bad behavior gets unchecked. And for this all to be in the water signs and these intuitive signs, it just represents that like all of these things have to do with things that are done in not secret, but yeah, secret, right? You got the 12th house, it's the hidden house. You got the 8th house, it's the house of secrets. And you have like the 4th house, which is more of the intimate house. And so you have boundary issues, you have secrecy, you have all this stuff, and it's all wrapped up in her karma. So I don't like this, because I came into this reading, or at least just looking at her chart and studying her chart, kind of like thinking, okay, everything she said about her father, everything she said about her family, everything she said is not true, because she's been lying the whole time. But this chart, there's a reason why people come out this way, right? We keep making people just as these individual people with no influences of anyone else, when we forget that they grew up in a house and a family and in a society, and you know what I'm saying, that had to have supported them. So really quickly, the South Node is in Scorpio again to revisit, and there's two rulers of the South. South Node is in Scorpio, two rulers of Scorpio, Pluto, which is conjunct the South Node, and also Mars. And I think it's very fascinating that her karma is so public, right? So what happens is she's having to deal and relive the past lessons and tests that she's had to deal with, and maybe past life, early life, or whatever, but she's had to deal with the consequences of the things that she's experienced and how she's dealing with it on her MC, which is the most public place to deal with something that is so intimate and deep, and usually something you want to hide, right? And then the fact that Mars is conjunct to MC and Uranus, there adds a uniqueness to it, a unconventional element to how she is seen publicly. So a lot of times when you see Mars and Uranus, you'll see violence, you'll see some type of, bloodshed, something like that. But then you'll have Uranus. When Uranus is there, it's so shocking, right? It's absolutely shocking, because you have a mother, right? Because like I've heard some stories about people who've done just heinous crimes, like really heinous, and you'll see Mars and Uranus kind of doing something. It's a square or whatever, you'll see them kind of together because they're so ridiculous. And because of that ridiculousness, it's being just put on Front Street, and she's defined, and the way the world and society sees her is through the lens of, pretty much the stuff that she's dealing with, behind the scenes. So Jupiter is in the 12th house. 12th house is the house of solitude, self-undoing, addictions, skeletons in the closet, child, like things that you just are kind of put to the side, things that have a rehabilitation element to it, or something that by nature makes you secluded. So hospitals and things like that. Jupiter is a benefic. It is usually associated to a benefactor. It's associated to opportunity. And so here, I feel like this just speaks to the fact that she always had a safety net. No matter what, she's always had someone helping her. We can say this through her parents, because her parents switched teams a lot. It was, if you look at like how her parents showed up for her, and then she kind of like, I don't know, they've always kind of supported her as far as they could until I think this last documentary, and I think she like put the nail in the coffin on their relationship. But there's always been someone kind of in in the wings taking care of her. And specifically her lawyer was a particular benefactor. So there's some tea that basically Caylee Anthony couldn't pay for her legal fees. And so pretty much she had to do some sexual favors to her lawyer. And this is like, I mean, it's kind of well-known information. This is not hearsay or anything, that she had to do some sexual favors for her lawyer because she couldn't pay for her fees. And then there was just like a weird relationship thing. Even they saw her naked in one of the offices. So that was kind of in the lawyer's office, like weird stuff. I do want to talk about the fact that, Saturn's in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is this like free loving, freedom, adventure loving type of sign, truth seeking sign as well. Her MC is up there, and so the things that you'd want to naturally be drawn to or seen as is this like free spirit, and I think I still do see her as that. But at the same time, Saturn really restricts that and keeps her from being able to express herself in a way that is and to allow her to have the freedom that she's always wanted. And Saturn also is can be an authority figure and a parent. And so that is significant, right? Where her father could have been very militant. I mean, you have to think about it. Her father, I think, was he worked in some type of agency, like law enforcement agency. And so because of that, I'm sure he wasn't like the easiest person, or maybe he was, but this is the thing. This is so hard because he seems completely different from what the interviews are on his chart. But then the thing she says confirms what's on her chart, if that makes sense. But however, this authority figure is squaring her Jupiter in Pisces, but then also what's squaring her Jupiter is Chiron. And I really wanted to make a note of Chiron. So, and by the way, Saturn is opposing, because the T square, Saturn is opposing her Chiron in Gemini. So I really wanted to emphasize the Chiron in Gemini. So Chiron is your wound that we all have in our life. And it really makes it hard. And in order for us to live lives of purpose, we have to learn to work with that energy. In order for us to thrive, that area of our life needs to hurt a little bit, and we need to push through in order to, again, live the lives we want and to help people along the way. So a Chiron in Gemini would be associated with a person having issues having their voice heard. And I do think, because since Chiron is on 9 degrees, around the age of 9, Caylee, if you can hear me, I'm sure she wouldn't admit to anything, but around the age of 9, something happened, a wound was created in her life that kept her from, that somehow kept her from using or being able to speak her truth freely. Chiron in Gemini is siblings. So there's wounding that could have happened around siblings. The ruler of Chiron is Mercury, right? Because Chiron is in Gemini. And Mercury is really close to the ascendant. So her brother had a huge impact in her life. Now, I do want to say that I've heard some crazy stuff. You guys, I'm gonna have you guys Google the allegations against her brother and her allegations against her dad, and you come back and you tell me what you think. But her father and her brother had a huge, strong impact on her life. Early years. And I will highlight here that Chiron is opposing Saturn. So the wounding that she might have received, got or was created, could have been through, her father, her relationship with her father, some type of emotional wounding, some type of feeling that she's restricted, or a sense of inadequacy related to her interactions with her father. That is there. And you also have the sibling comparisons, because when you have Gemini Chiron and Gemini, you have the sibling comparisons. I don't know if her brother who's older than her. It could be as benign as the normal. My father was too strict, and my brother and I were always compared to each other, and that caused friction. I hope that's the extent of the scenario, because that's a better scenario, you know, a scenario that I'd rather for anyone. And so if that's the case, then cool. But sometime around 9 years old, something suppressed her ability to speak. And I would, dare I say, even be able to express herself in the way that she'd want to. And yeah, I think that there were a lot of things that affected her. And she's coming into this life of just like having, I think everything's very internalized. But then there's a lot of just like reaction, she's just acting. You know, she's just doing a lot of things, but not really thinking them through, because she's got a lot of internal mechanisms going on that's causing her to act certain ways, because she's either experienced some type of trauma in her early years. Hopefully this makes sense. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll end this video with the question is she, based off of this chart, is she really guilty of what we think she's guilty of? And I think that she can be. I say that because when you have a South Node in a South Node in Scorpio, a conjunct Pluto, you're dealing with lifetimes of atrocities and trauma and dark-sided behavior. You could have been a victimizer or you could have been a victim, but you're used to that power, you know, give and take. You're used to that and familiar with that, with those roles. And so a person who comes into this life or has early childhood that's Plutonian in nature, associated to like to dark-sided activities and things that are done in the shadows, really will have to be very self-aware in order to rise above those things and to choose the light and to do the best, and to do the best thing, right? So so a person with that type of placement would have to be very aware and have to get a lot of help and guidance and counseling in order to navigate their life, so that they are not repeating generational curses, you know, generational traumas, and handing those things down. I think there's more to the story. I don't think that we'll ever know anything clearly. We don't even know who the father of Caylee is. Like, there's so much to the story that we will never know, and that it's just such a Piscean thing. Like, that's just like, we'll never know, like just cloud fogginess. We'll never know the truth of anything. I know that the parents did a lie detector test. The father was like acting weird. They passed it though. So it's just like, we're not going to know. And that is, I think, the interesting thing about this case is that, and this plays out quite a lot, because again, a lot of her energy is in these like signs that are really below the surface. They're not really about it's not Leonian, you know, in nature. It's not like in your face. There's a lot there that people are not talking about. I mean, even they didn't tell the brother that Casey was pregnant until I think she was 8 months. And Casey didn't tell her parents, I think, that she was pregnant until she was like 7 months. And they were like, girl, you look a little pudgy. Like, they didn't even know. And she was living at the house. And then they still lied to the brother. So it's like, what's with the lies? And so when you have this, like, you know, when I was saying, okay, early childhood of like boundary issues, it could also just be early childhood of learning that truth is not valued, and that if you tell the truth, that you will be reprimanded, that you'll get in trouble, that those consequences will be so hard that it's gonna be scary for you to come up and speak your truth. And for some kids that doesn't affect them, but some people, they're more sensitive to these things. Now I'm gonna go over the transit chart for the date that Caylee was suspected of passing away. So something that sticks out to me in terms of what's going on with Caylee, I don't know why. Every time I do these like charts of what's transiting the chart at the time of these events, I always see South Node activity, and I'm just like, ugh. Okay, so pretty much her South Node is sign-based squaring her natal South Node. So it's really adding tension, stimulating some of the issues that might have already been from her childhood, maybe some of the issues that she had when she came into this lifetime, feeling like, you know, some type of fear, pain, anxiety that's associated to stuff that's happened early on in her life. So that was going on internally, but Mars is like anger and aggression and honestly violence. And so when you have this type of activation, this person can just fall into bad patterning. The South Node tends to be the negative interpretation of things. And so whenever the South Node gets activated on a person's chart, you know, if they are not aware and they're not working towards things, they can just fall back into bad patterning, which honestly, all of the charts that I've seen where someone snaps and does something has the South Node energy that's more acute with a faster transiting planet like a Mars, and it's not mutable. So something to consider, that Mars is also a ruler of her natal South Node. So, you know, that again, the patterning, going back to what is comfortable, going back to what was taught in past lives, you know, failing the lessons that keep coming before her. And across from her, she's dealing with Chiron. So she's facing the wounding of just feeling different, feeling isolated, asking herself, am I doing the right things? Am I doing, like, who am I? And she has her Saturn squaring her natal Saturn. So the transiting Saturn, she's going through a Saturn square, which again is a period of really, you know, you can have self-pity, you can have fear, you could be like, what am I doing? So it's like a confidence crisis. But definitely I would say that during the time that Caylee went missing, first of all, let's assume that she did it. I think she did it. I think that she did something happened. Don't know what that thing is, but something did happen and Caylee was involved. I think that during that time, she's going through a lot. She's going through the fact that she never wanted to keep her child, that she wanted to put her up for adoption, that she's being held back, that she wants the freedom that she thinks she should have. 29 degrees Pluto in Sagittarius. It's like, I really want to go to the next stage. Like, I really want to really embody this sense of freedom. Like, I really do. And it's definitely seems like there's some type of activation of her trauma, her anxiety, her sense of self, her confidence. Like, something happened. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. I'm gonna try to do more of these. It's so hard. I got kids, I got a job, and I have to see my husband from time to time. So anyways, I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comment down below. Make sure to subscribe because I will be doing more videos, don't you worry, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay, bye.